You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Deku in Hero Academia joins One Punch Man. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Lumpe Spark 3 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The real world, Child Emperor, Mina, Gyro. Mina and Gyro began to walk into the Child's Emperor's lab, only to be greeted with their items right away near the front of the door. They both began to put them on as they saw Child Emperor approach with a lollipop in hand, wearing his small backpack. Today we're going out on patrol. I want you guys to have some real combat experience with your new items, he stated as he approached the two girls. Woohoo, we can finally go out into the world, Mina exclaimed, lifting her arms into the air. Don't you think it's a little too soon? I don't want any accidents to happen while we're out there, Gyro said as she stared at her pink friend who slowly brought her hands down to behind her, turning her head bashfully as she whistled to herself. It should be fine. Monsters usually cause some collateral damage after all, and you two need the experience with them in the field. It will also help with finalizing them, Child Emperor said simply as he continued past them out of the laboratory. Mina quickly followed behind, flashing her tongue out in a mocking gesture as she passed her punk rock friend, who only shook her head in return and followed along with them. The three of them were currently on the streets, but nothing seemed to be happening as they walked. Occasionally Mina would be stopped by a random passerby asking her what type of body paint does she use to get that color for her skin, leaving her speechless to retort, only stating it's a secret recipe that her mother created, making Gyro hold in her laughter after each occasion. One even questioned her horns on her head and attempted to touch them, but she quickly stopped them, saying that she was just really into cosplay and power walked ahead of the group around a corner. Gyro let out a laugh as she neared the corner, turning to see a grumpy Mina glaring back at the laughing girl. I hope you keep laughing once I get my revenge, Mina said as she crossed her arms in front of her. Calm down, we wouldn't want your body paint to come undone from getting so worked up, Gyro commented with another chuckle before Mina could reply to the sassy comment. Child Emperor interrupted. Something's about to happen, he said, monotone voice, looking at a device in his hands, instantly drawing the two girls' attention. On the screen was an outline of the city from an aerial perspective. There was a blue dot which they guessed signified their current location and a red dot a little further away. Just as they were about to ask what it meant, but were stopped by an alarm blaring, they both recognized how similar it was to the one in their training simulation the other day. The alarm rang out with an automated voice of there being a tiger lever threat in a specific area designated. The two heroes believed that the red dot on Child Emperor's screen was the area stated by the announcements, and their suspicions were confirmed as they made their way over to the zone, passing numerous civilians running away. They eventually got to the scene and were surprised at what was causing such havoc. There were a great many creatures, 10 or so large bunnies the size of large dogs. Their teeth were razor sharp and were foaming from the mouth. What are those? Gyro said as they gazed upon the raging rabbits. They seemed to attack anything around them, crashing into windows, biting and chewing into car tires, and even more. One of the creatures recognized them and screeches, alerting the others to their presence. It launched through the air with surprising speed, but was cut in half by one of Child Emperor's metal tentacle. There was a buzz saw revving at the edge of the tentacle, instead of the traditional spider-like limbs they used to have. The rabbit's cry ended in a short screech of silence. The action shocked the two teens behind him as its split body passed by them, blood splattering on the ground in front of their feet. Likely someone abused them turning into this, or they ate some plant monster, Child Emperor said casually, still sucking on his lollipop, before looking back at the two teens and smiling. Well, good luck, he said as his backpack sprouted spider legs again and jumped up and away, using his spider legs to climb a small building, overlooking the scene and sitting down. Gyro was about to comment on what the hero was doing before she was roughly shoved out of the way by Mina, who immediately used her glove's pressurized nozzles to spray another rabbit that jumped at her, forcing it back and sticking it into the ground, unable to escape with maximum viscosity. Gyro quickly found her footing and looked as 3 more rabbits charged at her. Thinking quickly, she used her super mover heartbeats around. The loud sound suppressed all 3 rabbits at one time, each beginning to shake their heads before falling to the ground unconscious. In the meantime, Mina was covering her, spraying her acid at the bunny, attempting to save their friends from the sound waves, but the sticky substance was forcing them back. Gyro turned to help her friend just to see one rabbit sneaking up behind Mina from the rooftops. She was about to shoot at it with a concentrated sound wave blast as it jumped, but before she could, it was immediately cut in half by one of Child Emperor's metal arms, this one having a blade on the end. She briefly shivered as the body fell on the ground lifelessly, but turned her attention back in front of her. Only 5 bunnies were left. She used her ground amplifiers for a greater area of effect. She used the same move on the other bunnies, and the same effect started to occur. The bunnies started to rub their head from the piercing sound. But as they were going to fall, 2 burrowed underground to avoid falling unconscious, while the other 3 fell to the ground. Mina looked around suspiciously. "Are they gone?" she questioned. "I doubt it," Gyro replied as she stuck her earphone jacks into the ground. She heard the mushing and grind of the ground being pushed aside as the creatures moved underground. She gestured to Mina to shoot her acid on 2 designated places, and a moment later both bunnies launched out of the ground directly into the goo, trapping them, squirming on the ground. "Seems like they work pretty well," Child Emperor said as he landed down with his spider legs. "What was that? You just fed us to wolves, bunnies," Mina shouted at the kid hero. "I knew you guys could handle it, and I told you, this was a test for you guys. If I offered too much support, then I wouldn't have been able to get the data I wanted," he said, sucking back on his lollipop. Gyro put a hand on her friend, calming her slightly as she went to speak next. "What are we going to do with them now?" Gyro questioned, gesturing towards the 8 restrained bunnies. "I don't know. I'm surprised you 2 didn't kill them, actually," he said, a bit in confusion. "Can't something be done for them?" Mina pleaded. "Ugh, I don't think so. They're monsters. There's nothing anyone can do to help them. It would be better to just kill them," he stated, 2 metal arms sprouting out with blades on each limb as he proceeded towards the downed creatures, only to have his path blocked by Mina and Gyro. "I have an idea. We have a friend that can talk to animals. Let him talk to them. Maybe he can calm them down. They maybe don't have to die," Mina reasoned. "She's right. Maybe he could help and rehabilitate them," Gyro continued. Child Emperor, seeing the seriousness on their faces, he only sighed and retracted his blades into his backpack. "I doubt it will work, but sure, we could give it a try, maybe even get some information out of it," he said as he took out a phone and dialed the association to come pick up the creatures. "Who are you calling?" Gyro asked. "The association. They can come and pick all of them up and transport them to some caging area," he said as the association member picked up the phone. He watched as the 2 girls shared a high five. "How about a deal? Drive Knight, Kaminari, Momo." As he watched his friend leave with the spear-wielding guy, Kaminari felt some worry in his mind for his friend, but he was confident in her ability to take care of herself if something came up. He turned back to look at the cyborg in front of him. He was definitely seemed threatening from his black armor and his one large red eye in the center of his face, but the color scheme did look badass in his eyes, and no doubt the people who come against him would probably be scared shitless, especially in the dark, Kaminari pondered, as he wordlessly followed Drive Knight to the room with the generator from the other day. But before he could enter, Drive Knight stopped him. "Unlike previously, today I want you to attempt to absorb and discharge the voltage concurrently," Drive Knight said in a monotone voice. "At the same time, do you think you can do that?" he clarified, seeing the confusion on the boy's face. Kaminari thought for a moment before answering. "I don't know, but I can at least try." Kaminari nodded with determination as he started to enter the room, going to the center of the machine like before. "I will fire 10 million volts in a continuous stream. Are you ready?" Drive Knight stated. Kaminari held up one finger. "Let it rip," he said in confirmation, and Drive Knight activated the machine. And watch as the lighting began to get absorbed by the teen as he pointed his other hand to the ground, discharging the electricity below him. The boy looked to be struggling a lot more than he was doing previously. Maybe that girl had a point, he thought as he watched the last of the voltage drained away from the machine and filter out. Kaminari breathed a heavy sigh of relief as the machine wound down. Both of his hands were shaking somewhat highly from the strain, and he took a moment to catch his breath as he raised a thumbs up at Drive Knight behind the screen. "I did it," he said, slightly winded. "You indeed have, but you seem more tired than I expected. Your normal limit is 30x this amount after all," Drive Knight explained. "Heh, I don't know, man, you tell me. I never tried to do that before. Perhaps I'm just getting used to it." "Let's try it again," Kaminari said with a smirk. Drive Knight simply nodded his head and obliged with the boy's request, furthering his testing until the boy reached his limit and went into his fried brain mode, as he called it. Drive Knight was still wondering why his body naturally went into that thumbs-up state. Was his body moving unconsciously, or was it the work of his quirk sending multiple impulses into his body in a specific pattern? If that were the case, then there could be potentially more to his quirk than just giving and receiving electricity. Drive Knight pandered and marked the hypothesis for further study. Once the teen finally settled down and became cognitive again, he asked the teen of this anomaly, but the teen was stumped as well, stating only it was just a natural reaction. Maybe that it mimicked his most common body movement. Drive Knight thought again. "So how'd I do?" Kaminari wondered. "You managed 100 million volts before you became completely overloaded, 3x below your limit, but better than expected given your first time. It could be that your brain is simply being overtaxed by absorbing and discharging at the same time, reducing the limit of voltage you can manipulate," Drive Knight speculated. "I see. So that means that I just need to train more, and it will get better," Kaminari said. "Perhaps it would not hurt to try," Drive Knight stated. The two continued on like this for some time before he heard the sound of the door opening behind him and the signs of two people walking towards them. Kaminari had just gotten through another bout of voltage, so he was unaware of the individuals approaching them currently. Out of the shadows were Stinger and Momo. "As I promised, the girl is back safe and sound," Stinger boasted. Drive Knight noted the band-aid on her abdomen. "But not exactly unharmed, I see," Drive Knight said. "Well, the first mission was more difficult than we originally thought. Some details were left out," Stinger said, rubbing the back of his head. "Don't worry about it, it's fine. Nothing but a flesh wound. I doubt it even leaves a scar," Momo defended. "Unlikely indeed. I will fulfill my half of the bargain. You are dismissed," Drive Knight told Stinger. Stinger nodded and took his leave, saying goodbye to Creationist before heading out. The time was getting late and Kaminari still hadn't woken up completely from his weakened state, forcing Momo to guide him slightly out of the building, but before she left, she came back to talk with Drive Knight. "This spear is made of some remarkable material," Momo said as she held it out to the cyborg, who refused to take it, pushing it back to her. "It is yours, I have no need for it," he remarked offhandedly. "Why, thank you. But could I perhaps have some blueprints of yours? I mean, you called my hardest material brittle, and after my time today I fully believe you. So I would like to better upgrade my equipment," she reasoned. Drive Knight stared at her for a moment, and for a moment she may have thought she was being rude, asking something of a person she barely just met, but before she could apologize for her mistake. "I can offer you some schematics of mine, but what would I receive in return?" he questioned her. Momo thought for a moment. Of anything she could offer in return to the cyborg for helping her, she didn't have much in terms of materials in this world, but that train of thought led her to what she did have that the cyborg wanted, and probably what he was hinted at in the first place. Breathing a small sigh of resignation, she continued. "What do you plan on doing with my blood, if I may ask?" she said hesitantly, getting a small rise out of the cyborg, if his eyes' slight movement was any indication. "The same as I do for a monster's experimentation, to see how the powers work and if it can be replicated," he said with a monotone voice. "And if it can be replicated, what then?" Momo asked. "Then I will use it to upgrade myself," he said simply. Momo took one more look at Drive Knight and began to weigh her options. After 5 minutes of deliberations, she decided to go through with it. She exchanged a couple of her blood samples for a 1 terabyte of files on schematics. Although a large majority of the information was association knowledge, only 2% was his own personal creations. Drive Knight thought as the girl walked away. Deliberations, Class 1A. As is tradition at this point, most of the class met in the common room. Midoriya and Ojiro were early, but they were both surprised to find that Tokoyami and Toru were already there. As they walked, they were greeted by the other two. "Hi guys," Toru tried to say enthusiastically, but her voice was strained. "Greetings," was all Tokoyami said before resting his head back down. Ojiro noted Toru's strained voice and sat down next to her. "Rough day," he commented, sitting down beside her. "To say the least," she replied. "What happened?" Midoriya sat down next to Tokoyami. But it was Dark Shadow that surprised him from popping out and answering. These two had to go through some extreme physical exercise after having their butts whooped by their teacher. Dark Shadow said, laughing a bit at their expenses. Finally mastering the strength to lift his head again. "You couldn't even make him move with your attacks, if you don't remember," Tokoyami mentioned as he glared at Dark Shadow, who seemed bashful and retreated back inside Tokoyami, who looked towards Midoriya. "Our mentor wants us to increase our physical strength before working on our quirk abilities," Tokoyami said. "Ooh, that reminds me, Ojiro, guess what?" Toru peeked up again, looking at the boy in the face, shocking the boy somewhat with this random burst of energy. What?" he said curiously. "Zombieman said that he would find a martial art for me to study, so I can better use my invisibility," she beamed, which caused the boy to flash her a big smile. "That sounds great. Maybe you can ask him to train under Bang with me and Midoriya. That way we could train together and even practice on our own," Ojiro said enthusiastically, surprising the girl somewhat with his unusually upbeat mood. She saw his tail waving somewhat excitedly from side to side as well. "That's a great idea. I'll run it by him sometime and see what he has to say," she replied with equal enthusiasm. "I hope you don't get too mad when I can kick your butt," she said as she mimicked his hand placement when he got into a combat stance, causing him to chuckle a bit. "You still have a long way to go before you can, and I'm gonna keep getting stronger too," he replied, taking her wrist and moving them to a more correct position before he could even tell what he was doing, releasing her hands somewhat later with a flushed expression on his face. The others started to walk in one or two at a time. The next outburst was from Mina and Gyro walking in and observing the room. Locking onto her target, Mina immediately made a beeline towards Kota. "Kota!" she shouted. "Why, yes," the shy boy flinched somewhat in his seat from the sudden attention. "Me and Gyro fought these huge rabbits today. We were wondering if you could talk to them and find out what's wrong with them," she asked. Okay," was all the quiet boy said. "Thanks. With any luck you can save their lives, and I could get a pet rabbit while we're here," she said off to the side. "Was that the real reason you wanted them to be rehabilitated so much?" Gyro chastised. "No," Mina said through a whisper, causing some folks to laugh at her antics. The atmosphere became somewhat colder as Shoji entered the room. He was one of the last of their classmates to enter. Everyone had seen the messages that Momo sent staging that something happened the other day with him and were eagerly waiting for details on what it could be. As everyone gathered around to listen to what happened, Shoji told the story of what happened. Aoyama chimed in on his part and shared the police report written of the incident, leading to many gasps and murmurs among his classmates, with recognition in some. He let them in on Sweet Mask plan to expose them all to the public sometime next month and ease public tension so they may not have to wear those additions anymore to their outfits. "So Zombieman was right about it being the police," Tokoyami said under his breath. "So that's why you all got those weird items to make you look more mechanical," Momo mentioned. "I'm curious though, why didn't Mina get anything? She doesn't look exactly normal," Kiminari mentioned. "Probably because she's a girl that's into body paint and cosplay," Gyro mentioned, holding in a laugh from the inside joke, earning a glare from the girl in question. "Well, they probably believe it's just tech. I could actually make my skin, hair, and eyes similar to Mina's if I want to," Taro mentioned, earning some shocked gasps from the group, but none louder than Mina herself, who stopped glaring at Gyro and instantly ran up and grabbed the invisible girl's hand. "Really? OMG. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Come on, we got to see how you look. I always wanted a sister," she said as she basically dragged Toru out of the room towards her room. With that said, everyone was mostly satisfied with everything and headed out towards their rooms for the night. As people started to file out, however, Todoroki gestured for Momo to everyone filed out of the room. As she looked at those who still remained in the room, it was only those involved with the mission from earlier on in the day. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Something was bothering me about the mission today." Bakugou was surprisingly the one to start. Todoroki nodded his head in understanding, continuing on. "From what we were told, it was a simple hit mission. Kill the monsters in the area and leave. But why all the secrecy?" "What do you mean?" Shoji asked. "Well, if this was a simple monster attack, why did they evacuate the neighborhood and block it off? Did you hear any alarms when you were there?" "No, and the people I helped didn't act like there was an imminent threat to their life in the area. Just seemed annoyed to be leaving. I do think I overheard the word contamination being tossed around though," he said, rubbing his chin. "What about you, Ponytail? Did those guys mention anything out of the ordinary?" Bakugou presumably asked Momo, who would have scoffed at the name but decided to just answer anyway. "No, I don't think they knew anything either. They were each approached by the agent that approached you 3 in the morning, talking about this monster, singular, but were surprised when they were others," she says as she rubs her head in thought, trying to remember anything on the subject but coming up blank. "Do you think the association did something wrong?" Shoji asked with a serious tone. "I don't know yet, but it all just seems odd to me," Todoroki said. "They don't seem like the type that dislike getting their hands dirty," Bakugou said as he made his way to the door, turning back to say one more thing before leaving. "Keep an eye out. I don't trust these guys just yet." Shoji left sometime later, stating that he would see if he could find anything out on his end and that Bakugou was right to be cautious. Leaving only Todoroki and Momo there, they talked somewhat about what she was doing with the ragtag posse of heroes and their perspective of events, after one last check to see if her wound was okay and Momo stating that it was fine. Both parties went their separate ways into their rooms, where sleep took everyone in Class 1A, 2 of which a little later than the others. Just a bunch of fancy poses, Bang, Darkshine, Metal Bat, Zombieman groups. A couple of days have passed, and after Ojiro and Toru both expressed the thought of the girl teaching under Bang's water stream rock smashing fist, Bang, seeing the opportunity to have more students, more than happily opened his doors to the Hero Association again. In fact, he extended the same deal to the associations that he had previously some months ago. Any individuals willing to learn or even just experience his martial arts is welcome to come and join in this demonstration. The teens were waking up and going about their normal business in the common area when none other than Zombieman, Darkshine, and Metal Bat entered the room. Kirishima was the first of the group of students to rush over and greet his teacher, followed slowly by the others. "Yo, Darkshine, what are you guys doing up here?" Kirishima wondered, bowing to his master. Bang had sent out invites to his dojo to experience his martial arts, and since we're all going, we decided to go together, Darkshine mentioned. At the mention of Master Bang, Ojiro and Midoriya also made their way over. "I guess Bang wants to give you a demonstration before you decide to join," Ojiro said next to Toru. "I know, right? I'm excited to see it," Toru exclaimed in reply. "I wouldn't get your hopes up just yet. I had some ideas about the martial art you should take on myself, but I'm no martial artist and Bang can shed some light on my opinion," Zombieman replied, leaning against a wall. "Awa, but that's okay, as long as I can get stronger," Toru said, pumping her fist into the air. "But I'm sure Ojiro wants you to train under Bang so he could spend more time with you," Mina teased from behind them, making several classmates chuckle, causing Ojiro to blush extensively, hiding his face with his tail. "Mina, don't be mean. Besides, just because we may be learning under different teachers doesn't mean we can't still train together, alone." She whispered that last part in his ear, making his heart rate increase and his face become even more red, his tail twitching a bit, causing the girl next to him to laugh. Before anyone else could dogpile more on him, the room was silenced by the harsh tone of Metal Bat. "I don't care about any martial arts, just a bunch of fancy dancing if you ask me. All I need is my bat, and the only reason I'm going 'cause the old geezer reminded me about our rematch. I'll clock him real good this time," Metal Bat said, tightening his hand on his bat. causing numerous of their classmates to just stare at the teen in mock disbelief. "Is he always like this?" Kaminari whispered to Koda, who only nodded his head in reply. "I'm surprised he didn't get paired with Bakugou or Kirishima." He continued to whisper towards Koda, but not low enough for the pompadour-styled teen to not pick up on. "Oh, you got something to say, Sparky?" Bad said, pointing his bat towards Kaminari, who only put his hands up in surrender. "Nah, nothing man, just seems that Koda was an odd pick for you is all. You two seem like complete opposites," he said hesitantly. Bad shouldered his bat again and replied, "Well, you ain't wrong about that. The association picked him, not me. But other than being a complete wuss, his power does come in handy in the work the association has me doing." "Meta," Bat commented, earning a few glares from some of the teens in the room that he simply shook off. "Either way, if you can learn something from that old man, then by all means," Metal Bat said as he began to walk outside, shouldering his bat behind his neck. "While not for the same reasons I'm with Metal Bat when it comes to martial arts, I'm just using this opportunity as a chance to spar with Bang. He always tries to avoid me when I ask him to, but he can't avoid me at his own home," Darkshine said with a laugh as he too walked out of the room, leaving only Zombieman to let out a sigh from his colleague's behavior. "Well, I guess I'm the only one going to actually learn something. Just meet us outside when you're finished here," he said solemnly, taking his leave as well, and they did say their farewells and wishes to their classmates before taking off as a large group, off to Bang's dojo. The large group got out of the limousine and stared up at the dojo on the large mountain. "So that's Bang's dojo, huh? Did it have to be on top of a mountain?" Zombieman said as he let out a sigh in resignation. "It probably gives him clarity or peace of mind," Darkshine suggested. "I think you're onto something, Mr. Darkshine. Back from where we're from, it was common for martial artists to seek out isolated places for peace and high places to give better perspective," Ojiro said, rubbing his chin in thought. "Whatever reason doesn't matter, it ain't that far up," Bad said. "You know a shortcut?" Toru questioned. "Of course I do. The quickest way between 2 points is straightforward," he said while running forward towards the mountainside and leaping upwards. "Well, he isn't wrong about that." Darkshine said the following after him, passing him and landing on top in a single leap. "So manly," Kirishima said, clenching his fist. "I think that's the smartest thing I've ever heard him say. Well, it beats taking the stairs," Zombieman said as he started towards the mountainside, but instead of jumping like the other, he reached into his trench coat and pulled out a device that shot out a hook towards the mountain's summit, propelling him upwards. "Whoa, an actual grappling hook. Cool. Hey guys, how about we race to the top?" Kirishima suggested. "I doubt any of us could beat Midoriya," Takoyami commented. "A battle for second place, then come on you guys, it would get the blood pumping and ready for what's to come," Kirishima said with a wide smile. "I'm up for it," Toru said excitedly, even though she knew that she would undoubtedly come in last place. "That's the manly spirit. Come on guys," Kirishima pleaded. "Fine. We need to get up there anyway," Takoyami replied. "I'm game," Ojiro answered. "Sure, but Toru, Koda, and Kirishima, would you like to get a head start? The stairs are somewhat longer, naturally," Midoriya said. Kirishima offered a smirk and replied, "Who said that I'll be taking the stairs?" "Well, I'll take you up on that offer. 10 seconds, okay?" "Come on, Koda," Toru answered as her Koda and began to approach the stairs, getting next to the stairs as the group got ready to start. The rest of the guys lined up next to each other facing towards the mountain and began giving Toru her head start to climb up the stairs. As the time wind down for their turn to proceed, Takoyami clocked himself with Dark Shadow, and as the race officially began, he took off towards the skies. Kirishima charged towards the mountain head first, hearting his fist as he scaled the mountain straight up. Ojiro used his tail to bound up the cliff face. As expected, Midoriya made the jump in just a single leap similar to Darkshine, greeting Takoyami as he landed, followed closely by Ojiro after some time, and then Kirishima. They waited a few minutes for Toru and Koda to make the climb up the stairs before Ojiro and Midoriya stated that they would go and get them. Hopping back down the mountain, Ojiro on the side of the cliff next to the stairs, Toru was just somewhat surprised by the haste entrance as a blur sped past him to further down the hill towards Koda. "I guess this means I'm the loser," she said, panting somewhat from running up the steps of the mountainside. Loser may be a strong term, let's just say you're in the 5th best place, Ojiro suggested. I could go with that, she reasoned, hunching over somewhat, before being surprised from being picked up by Ojiro, flustering the girl immensely. What are you doing? She said, squirming in his grasp lightly. Getting you to the top, obviously. We want to go in at the same time, and that bat guy seems to get cranky real fast. And getting some payback for earlier, he added on in thought. Hearing him, Toru stopped squirming around and held on tight to him as he used his tail to propel both of them into the air. Toru didn't know if her increased heart rate was from flying through the air like they were or how she was being held at the moment, and if she was paying more attention she would realize that the heartbeat of the guy that was holding her was also accelerated along with a distinct blush on his face as he carried her to the summit of the mountain. Midoriya arrived just after as he began to lower to the ground. Unlike Ojiro's bridal-style approach of carrying, he instead used his black whip to wrap around Koda's waist and used his float ability along with Black Whip to pull both of them up the mountain. He slowly reeled Koda in before setting him on the ground. About time you got here. Sheesh, Metal Bat said. He proceeded to the dojo doors. Metal Bat drew the group's attention just enough for Kirishima to put his phone away, after sending an image of their 2 classmates in the compromised position to a certain pink-haired girl in the class, before he was able to set her down. Both Koda and Toru thanked their helpers, as well as Toru making a joke about how she wished Deku would have picked her up as it seemed to be a more fun way than Ojiro's was. Ojiro said nothing in return and only taking solace in the fact that she didn't use the word basic or normal to describe the action as well. The group began to make her way towards the door just to have it immediately slide open with Bang front and center in the middle. I thought I heard a familiar voice, Bang said as he looked at a bad approach, which only forced him to redirect a bat strike aimed for his head. I told you, ya old geezer, that I'll come back to settle the score, Metal Bat said, hefting his bat ready to strike again but pausing as Bang held out his hand. I'll take you on again. Can it just wait until after my demonstration? Bang asked. TCH, sure, whatever you say, Gramps, Bad said as he strolled inside the dojo. I hope that invitation extends to me also, Darkshine said as he walked up behind Metal Bat, causing Bang to just let out a sigh. He never had these many challengers since the dojo hunters started leaving him alone. Sure, after Mr. Bad, I can spar with you as well, Bang said, nodding his head in acknowledgement, receiving a nod in return from Darkshine as he proceeded to the door, followed closely by Zombiman and the group of teens behind him, stopping Toru with a pat on the shoulder. Given that you are the only female here, I assume that you are the one Ojiro and Midoriya have been telling me about. Is Toru correct? He said with a graceful smile. Yup, that's me. Although Zombiman may have different plans for me, the girl replied. Ah, I see. Well, hopefully today's demonstration can change his mind. With that, everyone made it inside. Midoriya and Ojiro were partially surprised by how dressed up Bang made his dojo. For this occasion, there were banners decorating the walls as well as more decorated rugs that clearly outlined the arena. The students took up seats next to the front of the arena, while the heroes all took up residence near the edges. Ojo noticed the annoyed look on Chiranko's face and asked his fellow disciple what the problem was. He responded with a tiny sideways glance at Metal Bat. That guy, he has no respect for Bang or his martial arts. I don't even know why he came back a second time, Chiranko noted. He did mention that he wanted to pay back from last time. What happened? Midoriya said, curiously. We had a similar event like this a couple of months ago. He was here along with Tank Top Master and his lackeys, and someone else, Dogman, I think. Watchdog Man, Midoriya pointed out. Leave it to Midoriya to know about heroes, Toru commented. Yeah, him and some association big shot. He didn't do much while he was here, just fell asleep in the corner. Metal Bat, on the other hand, mostly just caused disturbances, he said, getting angry just thinking about the event again. Ojiro chuckled slightly upon receiving a glare in return. He explained to him. You really do care for Bang, don't you? I'm sure he doesn't mind, so you shouldn't get yourself so worked up over it. Any reply that Chiranko had died in his throat as Bang took center stage in front of them. He began like he usually did, showing the group forms and stances of his martial arts, but quickly grew into more fast and fluid motions that the group besides Chiranko never seen before. His pace and motions became so fast that they could no longer even see his hands moving anymore before immediately slowing down, showing the motions and steps one by one seeming more like interpretive dance than a martial arts form before he finished his performance with a bow. The teens in front of him offered a round of applause at his performance. "I don't know what I just saw, but it sure looked cool," Toru exclaimed, clapping her hands. "It was so fast, but I could have sworn that the move where you sped up was an omnidirectional defense," Ojiro asked, Bang thrilled at the boy's observation. "You are indeed correct. I call it the water stream encampment, a defensive option that repels attacks from multiple angles," he said confidently. "Whoa, that sounds cool, like an absolute defense," Kirishima muttered. "A wise move," Takoyami commented as well. Yeah, you done now? I'm itching for my rematch," Bad said from his corner. "You could learn a few things from these people in front of you about patience, young man. But sure, it would always be better to show an in-action demonstration. But not here, I don't want another wall to break," Bang remarked as he approached the door again and proceeded outside, followed closely by the rest of the group. Bang brought the group towards the back of the dojo. It was mostly rocks and barren landscape surrounded by a couple of trees and a small stream passing down further back. He approached one end of the area and prompted for Metal Bat to step up as well. Each opponent starting 30 meters apart. Bang discussed with Bad the rules for this spar. It was a timed duel of 15 minutes in length, or until the user cannot fight any longer. With all of that said, both opponents took their stances. "Oh man, I can tell this is going to be tense. Oh Koda, you've been with him the longest. Who do you think is going to win?" Kirishima asked. I don't really know about Bang, but Bad's pretty strong from what I've seen," he mumbled in answer. "Don't be fooled. Bang already showed this idiot the boot before. There is no way he'll lose now, especially if he still just swings that bat around," Chiranko said confidently. "I'll agree with Chiranko. From what I know of him so far, Bang's martial arts seems especially suited in dealing with straightforward attacks," Ojiro reinforced. "There is only one way to find out," Toru said in anticipation. Seeing the girl's enthusiasm, Bang offered her the opportunity to declare the match start, which she was more than happy to do. After a small countdown, she yelled out the words "fight," and the two combatants charged at each other. The two met in the middle. Bad was the first to strike, attempting to deliver a savage blow to the old man's ribs, but the blow was easily diverted with a quick swing of the older man's hand. This did not deter the young man's attempt to attack, continuing with ferocious blow after ferocious blow, each of which were diverted or dodged by Bang. The fight was a gracious display of Bang martial arts. Each swing was a near miss. No movement that the master did was wasted, ultimately culminating in the man using Bad's own momentum to completely flip him over on his back. Only 5 minutes have passed of the battle so far, and Bang had clearly held the advantage, angering the younger man greatly. "You're still just running away. Be a man. Fight me straight up," Bad said, getting to his feet. Fighting takes many shapes and forms in different individuals. They will not always fight the way you want, or will cry unfair in actual combat as well. Bang jested, getting back into his stance. "Oh, you're dead, old man," Bad roared as he came back at the man, charging even faster than before and swinging even harder at the older gentleman, but this didn't matter much at all to Bang. The blows would continue to be deflected and dodged. Their fight almost seemed to be happening in multiple places at a time as Bang dodged around the arena, dodging. The blows would start to kick up dust more and more, almost obscuring the spectator's vision, but it would abruptly come to a stop as Bang would land Bad on his back another time, but this time he didn't stay and flipped back on his feet, using his back to strike again, causing Bang to leap back and start the song and dance all over again. "Is it just me, or is he getting faster?" Midoriya wondered out loud. "You're not wrong. The further they go, the harder it is for me to follow what's happening," Takoyami confirmed. "Same here," Ojiro stated. "This is just a rumor, but it is said that Metal Bad gets stronger the more damaged he gets," Zombieman said while taking a puff from his cigarette, causing the teens to finally take their eyes off the battle for just a moment. "Wow, that's so manly. I wish I had something like that," Kirishima nearly screamed. "But how?" Midoriya questioned. "Quirks didn't exist here, so how could such an ability exist?" Midoriya thought. Zombieman only shrugged in return. Don't know, he doesn't either. He just calls it fighting spirit, Zombieman said. The fighting was just coming to a head when Bang managed to knock him down one last time before time was up. Although Bad didn't listen to the time as he continued on to attack. Time's up, you've lost, Bang said finally. I didn't lose anything, you never even hit me, Bad nearly exclaimed, slamming down one more time, hitting the mountainside, causing a minor vibration to shake through it. He went to strike again, but seeing Bang made no movements to stop the blow mid-swing as the bat nearly grazed the man's gray hair. TCH, whatever. If this all martial arts have to offer, then it's as pointless as I imagined. My cis piano lessons are almost done anyways, Bad said, shouldering his bat again before walking off. Let's go, Cody, Bad said as he strolled past the teens. It's Koda, Toru clarified on his behalf. Same difference, he waved his hand back, brushing her off. Rude, don't let him treat you like that, Koda, she pleaded to the quiet kid who stood up to follow. It's fine, he's just a little rough around the edges, he said in complacency. With one last goodbye to his classmates, he left with the man. It was quite comedic to see Bad lift Koda up and jump down the cliffside with him screaming the whole way down. Bang started to make his way over to the group. As he approached, he looked towards Zombieman, who had started to put out his cigarette. So Zombieman, what are your thoughts? Well, I can see why they call it the ultimate defensive martial arts, but I was thinking of something more offensive, Zombieman said politely. The rock-smashing fist is equal parts offense as well as defense, Chiranko defended. With that I have no doubt, Zombieman acknowledged. You seem to already know the style you're comparing it to, Bang summarized. Indeed, the art that I planned for her was the whirlwind iron cutting fist. I assume you're familiar with it. As soon as the name left his lips, Bang's eyes shot open in surprise, but he quickly regained his composure. My brother's martial art. What made you pick it? Bang as asked in almost disbelief. Well, I think it would be best suited for her power. Show them, Zombieman commented. Toru did as instructed. She zipped down the front zipper of her skin suit. To the surprise of Bang and Chiranko, there was nothing underneath, just empty air. Her body is normally invisible. She has the ultimate defenses when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. Already pairing it with the ultimate offense would make for a devastating combination, Zombieman explained. Bang rubbed his chin in thought before replying. I see how you could come to that conclusion, and I can't exactly find fault in your logic either. But are you sure she would be able to use it? They seem to be adverse to killing things, and that art is nothing but such actions. Bang reasons, flashing a glance towards Midoriya as he talked, and he could see that the girl noticeably squirmed at the words used to describe the whirling cutting fist. I had considered such possibility, which is the reason that I brought her here first before traveling towards Bomb's dojo. The choice is ultimately hers to make, Zombieman said with a shrug. I don't know if I ever actually want to kill someone, the normally energetic girl mumbled quietly. You may not have the whirling iron cutting fist holds many offensive techniques that can subdue targets. That's just what it's most famous for. You should at least see it for yourself before making your decision. I will be fine with any choice you make, Bang said, not trying to completely scare the girl from at least going to see his brother. All right, then I'll go see. Are we going now? She asked, looking towards Zombieman, who nodded his head and began towards the stairs, offering their thanks. Both Toru and Takoyami bowed and then left with Zombieman. Well, with that out of the way, I guess it's my turn, Darkshine said. Yes, I believe I kept you waiting long enough, Darkshine. Bang gave a nod and proceeded back to the arena. Oh, man, it's Darkshine time. I'm super curious how this will play out, Kirishima said, pumping a fist into the air. I'm curious how he will perform compared to Metal Bat, Midoriya said curiously. It doesn't matter, Bang won't be defeated, Chiranko said with admiration. The two opponents stared at each other down under the same rules as the previous bout. The two settled into their places and Kirishima did the honors of starting the match, unlike previous where the challenger charged forth to attack Bang head-on. Darkshine took a more measured approach, which Bang mirrored. Both slowly, steadily approached the center of the arena very casually, the tension Disney as they met. The first one to launch an attack was Darkshine, a straight jab that Bang redirected away with both of his arms. The force of the blow blew away all of the dust kicked up by the previous duel. He struck out with his other hand, which Bang slid to the side with his knee instead, kicking back out quickly to knock Darkshine's leg from under him. The blow landed but barely moved the wall of muscle, but the movement was enough to cause an imbalance to cause Darkshine to trip over somewhat. Attempting to capitalize on his fall forwards, Darkshine attempted to grab Bang with his extended arms coiling back in on the olderman. But Bang was one step ahead, avoiding the grapple by jumping up and over the man and using his back as a springboard to flip through the air away and landing some paces away. Darkshine was surprised somewhat but recovered quickly and got back up from his fall and charged forth. Bang dodged out of the way of the charge and was nearly taken off guard from the reverse backswing of Darkshine's massive fist, ducking under the blow and then sidestepping another jab from Darkshine's other hand. The side that Bang dodged pulled him into range of Darkshine's other hand, gripping the older man's arm and pulling his fist back to launch another punch, which was redirected to the side, but that was just a feint for Darkshine's actual attack, which was a headbutt. But Bang was able to scrunch his body down and below Darkshine's legs. Darkshine's grip on Bang's arm acted as leverage for Bang to complete the flip, ending with Darkshine on his back and Bang stepping back some more, waiting for him to rise once again. The struggle went this way multiple times, but unlike with Metal Bat, every time Darkshine was knocked to the ground, there was nothing but a smile on his face as he got back up and tried to attack again, until the time was finally up. Wow, even Darkshine couldn't even lay a finger on him, Kirishima said, amazed. Like I said, Bang is the best, Chiranko said triumphantly. The muscles don't seem just for show, that's for sure. I could feel the power behind those punches from here, Adrio said. Yeah, Darkshine's a beast. This was the first time I saw him in action in real life. I saw him inside of a simulation before, but this weight. Kirishima stared at Midoriya as he stopped talking. What is it, Kirishima? Midoriya asked as his friend just stared at him. Midoriya, you should challenge Darkshine, he yelled. What? Why? Because it would be super awesome. The simulation had data from All Might before, but we couldn't see the fight due to the drama that came from it. You have the same power, so it will be just like the same thing, Kirishima said in excitement. Oh, you and this All Might have the same power? Would you be willing to spar with me? Demon Cyborg said that he was a dragon-level threat, but my fun was spoiled early. Darkshine said. Sure, I suppose, Midoriya said, getting up and proceeding to the arena, hearing Kirishima faintly as he began to walk away. Oh yeah, alright, now we are talking. This is gonna be so manly, he said as he got his phone out ready to record the upcoming battle. Ojiro just let out an amused smirk from his antics, but was curious himself about where Darkshine stood, and more than that, he wanted to see where he stood. How far was the gap among them? Do you think it's okay for him? Chiranko asked, worried about Midoriya. Don't worry about Deku, he's really strong as well. I believe he was classified as an S-class hero. What? No way, Chiranko replied in disbelief. Yup, rank 14 I believe, Ojo stated. I think that would make him the youngest in the association's history, and he's higher than Metal Bat. If he knew, no doubt he would want to prove that he was better. Bang jested as he moved over towards the spectators. I think Todoroki was ranked 17, if I remember correctly, Kirishima commented. Oh, so he's ahead of Pry Prisoner and Tank Top Master, is he? I would love to meet him someday, Bang said. Well, he's not really a brawler like us. He can shoot ice and flames from his body, so he's mostly a ranged fighter. I know he's trains under Demon Cyborg. In that case, I'm sure I'll see him soon. I tried introducing him and his master to my arts, but my attempts have failed so far. His master holds great strength, far surpassing that of my own. With proper training, he would be unstoppable, Bang said, a little disheartened. Whoa, really? Kirishima asked, receiving only a nod in return. Before anyone else could comment more, Chiranko signaled the match to begin. Darkshine began stretching and went into and took a wide stance, presenting himself as open as possible before stating, I let you get the first shot in, no need to hold back either. Nothing has ever hurt these muscles, Darkshine said confidently. He ain't wrong, I hurt myself punching him, even in Unbreakable, Kirishima yelled from the sidelines. He isn't bluffing, even I would have trouble actually damaging him, Bang said to confirm. Believing them, he nodded in understanding and then powered up full cowling, going all the way to 100%. His hair immediately brightened and raised and lighting began to billow around his body. Darkshine whistled in surprise, the grin on his facing wetting somewhat in anticipation. Midoriya launched towards Darkshine, who stood still just as he said he would. The punch lands squarely in his chest, making the large man surprised take a step back. Almost in disbelief, he felt that punch. It was similar to his own. He touched his chest and felt a phantom pain there. Not painful to react completely, but enough to feel where the punch had landed. He looked up from his chest with a large smile on his face. Wow, you're definitely strong enough to be in the S class. Now I hope you're ready for my counter. Darkshine said, getting ready to attack Midoriya. He charged forwards towards Midoriya and delivered a straight punch. Midoriya used a cross block to stop the massive blow, the power of which sent him back several feet before he skidded to a halt. His arms were shaking somewhat from the punch, but he could still move them just fine. Darkshine showed a surprising amount of speed as he closed the gap on Midoriya in no time. Throwing a jab that Midoriya narrowly avoided, Midoriya jumped back away, shooting out numerous concentrated air bursts, but Darkshine simply let the attacks wash over him, seemingly not even phasing the man, despite the fact that the wind that the attacks kicked up was gigantic, eclipsing the dojo itself, forcing the others to buckle down from the force being emitted. Midoriya changed tactics, using his black whip to wrap around Darkshine and propelling himself foot first, while simultaneously drawing himself closer with the black whip, increasing his speed to increase the power of his jump kick. But to his surprise, the kick was simply grabbed by Darkshine's massive hand. Midoriya acted quickly, swinging his other leg around, trying to perform another kick, twisting his body to deliver another kick, this time aimed for his head, but Darkshine reacted quickly again, using his other hand to grab the kick. Before Midoriya could think about what to do next, he realized that he was spinning. Darkshine began to spin Midoriya around before slamming him into the ground. Midoriya immediately used his smokescreen to cloud his movement, and hopefully the shock of the maneuver would loose Darkshine's grip on him, which succeeded. He managed to get out from under Darkshine, and was about to try an attack in the cover of the smoke, but a sudden wave of air cleared all of the smoke from the area. "You are just full of surprises, aren't you?" Darkshine said with a grin as he prepared for the next attack. Midoriya racked his brain on what else he could do. Darkshine didn't give him the opportunity, charging forth, launching multiple right-hand jabs. Midoriya attempted to dodge each one while returning some punches of his own. He didn't have much luck in the exchange. His punches lacked the oomph to significantly stagger Darkshine, while the returning blows he successfully dodged around most of, but the ones that did land would stagger him, causing even more blows to land. Midoriya jumped back from the exchange. Before jumping back in, he had a little bit of Fajin stored in his left hand, and he began to charge back at Darkshine using a 100% Delaware smash. Darkshine reacted in kind, becoming enthralled with the battle, and used his superalloy bazooka. The two punches collide, sending a massive shock wave that shook the mountain they stood on. Bang breathed a sigh of relief as that last clash spelled the end of the spar. As the smoke and dust cleared, both combatants' fists were still connected, and it was Midoriya that flinched back first, slightly shaking his hand in pain. "That was a great match," Darkshine said, holding out his other hand for Midoriya to shake. "It was. You're really strong, Mr. Darkshine," Midoriya said in admiration. "That was awesome." They both heard Kirishima scream as he put his phone away. He had hardened one hand and both his legs and dug them into the ground to not get blown away. Meanwhile, Ajiro hung onto him with his tail as Bang stood there. "Well, at least there wasn't damage done to my dojo," Bang said as he looked over to the trees and surrounding area with some potholes, cracks, and some of the trees were upturned. Well, not too much damage was done to his dojo, he thought again as Midoriya and Darkshine made their way over. "So what are we about to do now, Bang?" Darkshine said. Bang rubbed his chin in thought for a moment before looking over to Ajiro and Chirenko. "Would it be too much for you if you take them out for patrol?" Ajiro expressed wanting to, and Chirenko can use the experience, Bang questioned. "Sure, I don't patrol very often, but it could be fun." "Everyone cool with that?" Darkshine received a wave of excited confirmation before the group left towards the city, while Bang stayed behind to clean up the mess from the matches. The motley crew of Darkshine, Kirishima, Midoriya, Ajiro, and Chirenko began to walk the streets of Z City. So far nothing of note happened so far in the city, only petty criminals that were quickly apprehended by the teens until suddenly an alarm rang out through the city. There were 2 demon-level threats in the area. The group immediately ran to the area and were surprised by what they found. There was a giant dragon knight, and what rode on top of it was an equally massive man in a full suit of armor. It flew in the sky, raining fireballs around in the sky. Midoriya, Ojiro, and Kirishima immediately got to work in protecting the fleeing civilians from the fireballs or debris from crashing buildings. Chironko just cowered behind Darkshine, who stood motionless in the center of the street. Midoriya had just finished saving a couple of civilians from a collapsing building before having his danger sense immediately flare up, quickly turning around just in time to see a fireball heading directly for him. He immediately turned to the citizens behind him and wrapped them up with his black whip. As the fireball slammed home directly in his back, he felt the heat wash over him as dust immediately covered his vision. Kirishima and Ojiro immediately came to his aid, asking if he was okay. After confirming he was all right, he instructed the two to get the civilians to safety. They both agreed and left with them. Midoriya shot out of the smoke towards the rooftops, next to the dragon and its rider. He looked at the hero curiously, then back down towards where the fireball went, seeing the other hero escorting the civilians away. For each person you save, 100 more will take their place, the rider said in a mystical, almost dead voice. He raised his hand, and it began to glow with a dark purple aura. Beneath the dragon, a dark purple aura appeared on the ground. Rising from the portal were knights in oblique and dark armor, wielding all sorts of medieval weapons such as swords and shields, some with even maces and spears. Midoriya immediately rushed forward, soaring through the air, and snatched the villain from on top his mount, crashing him onto the roof of a building nearby. The action immediately closed upon him being tackled. Only 10 knights had emerged from the portal. Upon being closer to the man, or so he thought, was a 3-meter-tall giant, but as he looked in, his eyes, dead eyes, stared back. Another pulse of aura suddenly pushed him off, skidding to a stop near the rooftop's edge. "Why are you doing this? Who are you?" Midoriya asked. "I was betrayed long ago. I warned of the rising seas, the imminent apocalypse, but they did not listen even after finding proof in the dragons. But they were afraid of the power it granted me. They lured me away and sealed me in a tomb, but I was awakened under the depths, and now I'm back to reap what is sowed," the writer stated in a scornful tone. "But these people today likely have no clue of that. Why take out your anger on them?" Midoriya tried to reason. "The sins of the father pass on to its sons," was the writer's only response. Before lashing out at Midoriya, a sword manifesting in his hands and slashing at the boy, which nearly avoided the blow. Midoriya shot back with his Air Force gauntlets, but the writer raised his other hand, summoning a magic barrier, and it reflected back at him, catching him off guard and catching him in the face. Midoriya recovered quickly and bounced straight at the writer. Below, the 10 knights charged forth at the group below. Kirishima, Ojiro, and Darkshine stood ready to face them, while Chironko still cowered behind them, unsure of himself. The group charged forwards. As the group met the heroes, Kirishima hardened his body to block the strikes of 2 swords swiping down at him. Ojiro battled a knight that held spear and shield user along with mace wielder, narrowly avoiding a thrusting stab from the spear and countering with a tail swipe, which was blocked by the user's shield before using it as a platform to launch off as the mace wielder tried to swing at him. Darkshine simply charged ahead towards the dragon, completely obliterating 5 of the knights that tried to stop him. Surprised by the act, Chironko began to crawl backwards out of the way of the fight, but before he could, another knight was in front of him, bearing down on him with twin daggers. He let out a shriek of terror, but was surprised when the assailant was knocked aside by Ojiro's tail. "What are you doing? Get up!" Ojiro demanded, scaring the boy into action. Ojiro took a glance at his fellow disciple and saw how he was shaking. He was clearly terrified of the enemies in front of him, maybe from a lack of experience, he thought. "Don't worry, they're weaker than they look." He tried to encourage him, but seeing that it was no use, he tried a different tactic. "Did Bang teach you to be a coward? He wanted you to experience hero work, and this is it. Are you gonna run away and fail him?" Ojiro chastised. This time the boy looked at him almost in mock anger at the notion, which drew him into a determined state of mind. Ojiro noted that his body stopped shaking, and he got into a stance ready to fight. The 2 knights that Ojiro was fighting earlier charged forth, ready to attack the 2 disciples, as the 3rd knight that attacked Chironko went invisible before their very eyes. The knight with the spear thrust forth again, trying to gore Ojiro, which he evaded. Grabbing the weapon, he closed the distance and punched the knight in the face, which it guarded with his shield, leaving it open for Ojiro to wrap his tail around his leg and spin the knight and throw him into a nearby wall. Concurrently, the mace wielder attacked Chiranko with renewed determination to not disappoint Bang. He pivoted away from the first mace strike, using the moment to spin completely and deliver a reverse roundhouse kick that was blocked by the knight. The knight attempted to grab his leg, but he quickly pulled it back and did an open palm strike to the creature's chest, staggering it somewhat in the process, but it recovered quickly and began to swing its mace above his head, which he then threw it at Chiranko. He saw the attack coming and momentarily panicked, but after thinking of Bang and his training calmed, he managed to redirect the trajectory of the ball back towards its master, which landed squarely in its face, knocking the knight on the ground. His celebration was short-lived after he was suddenly tripped up by Ojiro before he could ask why. The boy yelled to him to dodge as the third knight tried to stab him on the ground. He quickly rolled away on the floor, avoiding a stab before the knight disappeared again, causing the two boys to face back to back and wait for its next strike. Kirishima had just got done beating the two sword-wielding knights when he stopped to look at his friends. They were back to back looking at their surroundings, searching for something. He looked towards Darkshine, who held the dragon's jaws in his hands, completely halting it in place. Before he could explain how manly that was, he saw the dragon's mouth begin to smoke, and its body began to show lines of it building up energy. He looked back in the way of his friends who were in the direction the flames would go and yelled for them to get out of the way. Ojiro looked over to Kirishima and saw him gesturing to the dragon and got the message and went to grab for Chiranko before bouncing away with his tail. The knight tried to take the opportunity of him losing focus to strike, but didn't land a direct hit, merely scoring a mark on his tail, which didn't go through. But before it could chase after, the dragon's fire came streaming out of its mouth down the whole street, incinerating everything in its path, including the knight itself. Kirishima sighed in relief as he saw his friend had leapt away in time, turning to look and see if Darkshine was okay, and was unsurprised when he was just fine, holding the dragon's mouth shut before delivering a punch that completely evaporated the beast in one blow. Alduin, was the cry of the rider as he continued to fight Midoriya on the top of the rooftop. The momentary distraction was enough for Midoriya to speed in and tackle the man off, crashing down to the streets below, quickly using his black whip to tie him up and restrain him. "All right, we won," Kirishima hollered as he got closer to them all, followed closely behind by Ojiro and Chiranko. "Yeah, we did. I was so awesome," Chiranko said with supreme confidence. "Didn't you just sit around and hide for most of it?" Darkshine replied, cutting the man's self-congratulations short. "He just needed some motivation. It's his first time doing hero work." Ojiro defended, giving the older boy a nod which was returned. "Now all that's left is getting this guy behind bars," Midoriya said as he turned to look at the rider, who seemed to be grieving over his pet, mumbling to himself before suddenly becoming alarming everybody, followed by a sudden sound drawing their attention elsewhere as a sword covered in dark purple aura rushed into the sky and away from the scene. "That was weird," Kirishima mentioned. "You can say that again," Chiranko commented. "Well, onwards we go," Darkshine said, eager to continue on, completely uncaring of what just happened, and soon the rest followed. Midoriya took one last look in the direction the sword flew to before turning to follow as well. A tag-along: Tatsumaki, Zombieman, Uraraka, Takoyami, Toru. Uraraka was back at the training field again between cities. She was surprised that the place wasn't hollowed out by now, given how much rock Tatsumaki must have been excavating for her, but she was also surprised by the amount of pettiness the heroine had for such a simple comment yesterday, which carried on to now. She had increased the gravity she exerted on her to 3 times instead of 2, which made it even harder to move. As a result, she was directly pelted with multiple small pebbles that would strike all over her body. They didn't hurt as bad as she would thought, but they everywhere. She couldn't avoid them or maneuver away, so she just began to block them and try to keep them away from her using her own rocks. "Okay, I learned my lesson. I won't talk back ever again," she yelled over the rocks pelting her, causing them to stop in their tracks and hover around her instead. "Good. Weaklings like you should know their place and listen when the strong are talking," the girl said indignantly. Uraraka only sighed and nodded her head in defeat. She was curious why this girl was so high on being strong. While strength is needed for being a hero, but there are other things that heroes need, such as compassion, forgiveness, or inspiration. But she shows none of that, especially to heroes she finds weak. Zero was right, she does remind her of Bakugou in that way. She silently chuckled to herself at how Zero was spot on about the girl before being immediately knocked out of the experience as she was hit in the gut by a fast-moving rock, making her hunch over somewhat in pain. "What are you doing, losing focus?" Tatsumaki yelled, causing Uraraka to groan somewhat before quickly recovering in time to dodge the next rock that was aimed at her. But the attack still caught her by the foot, messing up her landing and forcing her to the ground. She knew that the attack wasn't going to stop, so she quickly began to roll away from her initial landing, avoiding another rock that hit the spot she was previously. Suddenly, the ground beneath her raised up, completely shooting her into the air. Thinking quickly, she immediately touched herself to prevent herself from falling, but realized that instead of floating upwards, she was being dragged back down by the rocks that clung to her. She quickly releasing them from her grappling hook, she was still being dragged downwards at the same speed. That confirmed a theory of hers that Tatsumaki powers overridden hers, and she continued to fall towards the ground. Multiple rocks flew up to attack her. She attempted to pivot and spin out of the way of the oncoming barrage, but with her increased gravity on her body along with the weightlessness of her motion, the movement proved difficult, only being able to avoid 1/3 of the barrage. Although it wasn't completely negative, as each hit slowed her descent to the ground somewhat to a more survivable fall, but to prevent the fall altogether, she used her grappling hook to hook on to one of the rocks that passed her, forcing her body to jerk upwards a bit again, slowing her speed again before letting go and sticking the landing on the ground. That was an acceptable performance," was all Tatsumaki said as she picked the girl up again and began to fly over towards another city, Uraraka mentally preparing herself for what's about to come. They flew further than she was used to, and when they landed, Tatsumaki ordered her to remain there as the familiar sirens were heard over the area. The threats levels highlighted were that of 2 wolves and a tiger. The area she was in seemed to be abandoned. Shopping centers with multiple stores were boarded up with, and the cars were empty of passengers. But before she could take more of the scenery in the store front of a auto mechanic burst open and a large robot appeared. It appeared to be a mix match of materials from the shop itself, along with a couple of cars' parts. It spotted the girl and immediately became hostile, letting out a mechanic screech, then charged at her. Uraraka thought on her feet and grabbed some of the rocks next to her, choosing the larger 40-ton rock and using her quirk on it and picking it up with her grappling hook to throw at the charging robot. It attempted to catch the rock but was surprised by the weight. The hand that attempted to catch it compressed and crushed into itself, sending sparks flying out along with a screech of pain, making Uraraka wince from the sound. The robot looked at its crushed arm and back at the girl before changing tactic. Picking up a car and throwing it at the girl, she wanted to dodge to the side, but was hesitant as she was still under the effects of 3 times normal gravity. She instead launched 2 20-ton rocks at the vehicle, effect fully canceling the momentum of the vehicle out, causing both the car and rocks to drop towards the ground. The robot creature charged forth behind the vehicle, closing the distance and leaping at the girl. She used her increased gravity to her advantage, dropping down fast, but not without touching it with her quirk and attaching the grappling hook to its foot as it passed over. She quickly used all her strength to slam the robot around her towards the ground, crippling it. She breathed a sigh of relief, but before she could catch her breath, a sudden explosion rocked from behind, sending her flying back. It was an even larger machine that had a wrecking ball as a hand and another arms with a drill. It looked to be made of construction tools, given its branding. A yellow coating on its shoulder was a smaller machine almost the same size as the one she just fought, that had blue highlighting and made of common kitchen appliances, as it held only knives as weapons along with the body of a stove. The big machine screeched at her and shot out its wrecking ball with surprising speed. She heard someone yell her name in the back of her mind, but was too focused on what in front of her to check what's happening. Suddenly she felt weightless as she was lifted away from the blow, and 3 large shots rang out around her. She looked at what moved her only to see dark shadow following the line of his body back to the source. She found Toru and someone else next to Takoyami. The stranger was the source of the shots, as his pistol still had smoke pouring out from the gun. Once she was set down, she checked back to the machines that were attacking, only to see each of them fallen over in a heap. from headshots which surprised her given that the distance from here to there was at least 500 meters and his gun held no sights for visual enhancement. But before she could think more on it, Darkshadow made a comment that made her flush with embarrassment. "Wow, you sure gained some weight while we were here." He jested with a small laugh. "Dark Shadow," Tokoyami immediately boomed, bonking the shadow on the head. "OMG, I can't believe he would just say that. Don't mind him, Uraraka. Even if you did gain weight, we would all still love you just the same. I'm sure Midoriya would too." Toru tried to ease the girl's worries, only making the girl flush even more in embarrassment. No, it's just that tornado. Increasing my gravity by 3 times, it's normal. Honest," Uraraka protested, covering her face with her hands and not floating upwards, which convinced her classmates her story was true. "Oh, sorry," Toru said, rubbing the back of her head. "Apologies for that, Dark Shadow," Tokoyami demanded. "I'm sorry," Dark Shadow said with puppy dog eye, curling up in front of Uraraka, who patted the shadow's head before it quickly fled inside of Tokoyami. "You said you're under tornado of terror. My condolences," Zombiman stated simply, earning a chuckle from the brown-haired girl, but suddenly Zombiman was forced to the ground, cratering it and his neck bending at a weird angle. "And what is that supposed to mean?" Tatsumaki yelled, coming down from the sky. Zombiman recovered quickly and brushed himself off, twisting his neck back into place. "Hello to you too," Zombiman said casually. "What are you doing here anyways?" she said, crossing her arms under her chest. "We were just passing through and heard the alarms, so we decided to help. Just in time, she could have been hurt," Zombiman said, only receiving a scoff at the notion. "Oh please, I was protecting her and she was going to be fine from that hit." As she said that, Uraraka began to glow green. "So you were just watching this take place?" Zombiman said, causing another dispute between the two heroes arguing back and forth. The teens stepped to the side and let them at it. Zero wasn't kidding, she does have a temper similar to Bakugou's. Toru jested, making Takayami nodded in agreement. "Yeah, tell me about it. Where are you guys going?" Uraraka asked. "While heading towards a martial arts dojo for Toru," Tokoyami answered. "Yeah, we just left Midoriya and Ojiro Master Bang, and we're going to head towards his brother's dojo next," Toru exclaimed excitedly. "Oh, that sounds cool. Can I come with?" Uraraka asked. "Sure, the more the merrier," Toru said. "I'm sure your teacher may have something to say about that," Takoyami mentioned, nodding towards the floating heroine. Uraraka interrupted the arguing heroes to ask Tatsumaki to see if she could leave. After some initial dispute, she reluctantly agreed to allow her to go with them, but stating that their training the next day will be even harder. She began to fly away, but Uraraka still felt the increase in gravity on her, and when asked about it, Tatsumaki just blew her off. She sighed, seeing that this was the best outcome, and went along with the others towards Bomb's dojo. The walk towards the dojo wasn't very eventful, and the group had finally made it to Bomb's dojo, which took longer than they expected if it weren't for needing to take breaks every now and again so that Uraraka could catch her breath. They finally came upon the edge of Bomb dojo. It was similar to Bang's in some ways, but instead of the tranquil height atop a mountain, Bomb's was on the cratered in the ground, surrounded by jagged edges. The landscape was barren, only stone structures and monoliths dotted the landscape. "Okay, seriously, there's no way her power extends this far. She has to be stalking us or something," Uraraka exclaimed tiredly as she sat down on the ground. "I wouldn't say anything if I were you," Zombiman remarked just before Uraraka's seated position became a flattened one. Toru and Tokoyami both reacted in shock about what's happening to their friend, and they were mostly powerless to help her. After a minute or two, the gravity effect entirely dissipated. The Spurs channel their power with their minds, so being clouded in it, I assume they can hear your thoughts or something," Zombiman said casually. "Try telling me that sooner next time," Uraraka said between breaths. "Are you all right?" Toru said with concern. "Yeah, I'm fine now. Seems like she let me go completely now," Uraraka said, lifting her hand and dropping it down. "Must be so surreal to be back to normal gravity," Takoyami mentioned, earning a nod from the girl, who tried to stand up and tip over slightly as she stood up a little too fast. "Just got to get my bearings as I go. I've slowed you guys down long enough," she said with conviction. The group progressed towards the dojo. The dojo seemed to just let out its class, and the crew was shocked to see a number of different students disembark from the dojo. Most pass by easy enough, some given a wide berth to Tokoyami, even with his new helmet on, while some stopped to say hi to Zombieman or ask for an autograph. The hero politely declined, and the group continued forwards and stopped in front of the man they assumed was Bomb. He was an aged old man similar to his brother, with flowing long hair in the back, bald on top, with a long beard all as white as snow, and he wore a traditional green and blue martial arts robes. He waited for the group to come closer to him before he spoke. "I guess you are the ones Bang called me about, but I see there are more of you than he said there would be." He started looking over the group. "We picked up a stray on our travels, but we're mostly here for this one," Zombieman said, jerking a thumb towards Toru. "Hello sir, my name's Toru," the girl said, walking for and reaching out a hand for the man to shake. "Hello Miss Toru. My brother informed me about choosing between him and myself," the older gentleman said while shaking her hand. "Yes, Mr. Zombieman said that your style would suit me better than your brother's, given I'm naturally invisible. As I've heard from my brother, which begs the question, why did you settle on my martial art?" Bomb asked Zombieman. "Because you and Bang are held as some of the best martial artists in the world. Also, given our shared partnership in the association, it offered connections that could allow her to be accepted. I ultimately chose you over Bang because it would feed into the strength of being invisible. Naturally, she wouldn't be targeted very often in combat, which leaves the more defensive options of your brother's style moot. On the other hand, if she is always given the first strike, I would like for her to finish the target with that strike," Zombieman explained, starting to lean on the dojo support pillars. The older man digested the information while stroking his beard, while the teens almost looked in shock at the man. "You guys must have gone over this with a lot of thought," Uraraka murmured to her friends. "No, not at all, that's just him." Toru shook her head in disbelief at the thought Zombieman had put into finding her a martial art to study. "He has a very keen mind and is very analytical," Tokoyami mentioned. "So you hope to lean her into the role of a glass cannon?" "Why?" Bomb asked. "Well, to be invisible, she has to be completely naked. She has little choice but to be," Zombieman reasoned. "I see, and what about you, young Toru? Do you agree with Zombieman's sentiment?" Bomb asked. "Well, I can understand the logic behind what Zombieman said. What concerns me is what your brother told me about your martial art. From what I can understand, it's pretty deadly compared to his," Toru hesitantly said, earning a laugh from the old man. "Yes, well, that is true, but don't worry, it's not some instacle technique. You must have the intent to kill behind it to achieve the desired effect. Observe," Bomb said as he walked away towards one of the numerous stone monolithic that dotted the landscape. This one was a thick rock 10 ft tall and wide. Bang approached the rock. He sprouted 3 fingers from his hand in a claw shape and thrust it forward to Teen's surprise. The rock was suddenly cut in perfect circular chunks in the different places, the top going further while the rest tailed behind. "Wow, that's incredible," Uraraka said, clapping her hands. "And frightening," Tokoyami said as well, which mimicked Toru's thoughts on how she would be able to even use such a technique on a living being, making her shake slightly in thought of the aftermath something like that would cause. Noticing her trembling form, Uraraka placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, you don't have to use that technique if you don't want to," she assured. Earning a nod of thanks from the girl, Bomb approached the group again. "I won't force you to make the choice currently, and I can understand how some may think of that technique as brutal, but I also teach other moves as well. The whirlwind is usually an augment to the basics," he said, making Toru become a little more relieved. "For now, may I ask you to show me how you fight currently? If you do choose me to instruct you, I would like to see where your current abilities lie," Bomb said. "Oh, ugh, sure, but who am I going to spar with?" Toru asked. "I'll do it," Uraraka immediately replied. With that settled, Bomb took the crew inside, and as the others sat down and Uraraka and Toru took up their position, Bomb announced the two to commence, and they 2 girls charged towards each other. Games and rivals: King, Saitama, Genos, Bakugou, Todoroki, Minta. Minta and King were just on their way towards the gaming convention. Minta took a look at King Wardrobe as they stepped outside and was curious. "Why are you wearing that, King?" he said somewhat too loudly for King's liking. "Is HHHS not so loud? Because if I were to go out normally I would draw too much attention. So I use this mask and shades to conceal my identity and live life at least somewhat normally," King said. Minta nodded in comprehension, but he didn't understand why King didn't want the attention. Undoubtedly he would have fans that would love to meet him, maybe even entire female fan clubs dedicated to him. If that were him, he would love the attention and adoration. He gushed just thinking about it. The two approached a rather quaint lounge that he would expect for a gaming event. It was a small space with tables scattered about with a stage in the front. A man in a tuxedo stepped on the stage and started to speak. They talked about all of the rules, regulations, controls that will be used for the game, and Minta got a kick out of seeing the bunny suits some of the women wore around the place. After choosing their characters, the two were ready for the tournament. King chose a pink anthropomorphic koala in a red bikini, while Minta chose an anthropomorphic rat character. King was in the first round and his opponent was a big gorilla fighter. From experience he knew King was wicked strong at this game, so he wasn't really worried about the matchup, but the advent of the VR system could maybe change things. After all, pressing buttons and inputs would be at a disadvantage against someone moving their bodies, right? "This better not be another one of your errands, trash can," Bakugou said as he and Todoroki followed behind Genos. "Master has stated that a large-scale battle will take place soon at his location. It is of the utmost importance that we go as quickly as possible," Genos said, somewhat jogging. He slowly entered into the massive building, not paying attention to any of the branding, which halted the two teens at the entrance. "You seriously don't think that Toaster is serious?" Bakugou said, holding back his anger. "I don't know. He made it seem like a real threat. Maybe his master conveyed the event poorly." Todoroki tried to reason. The teens looked around the big stadium, seeing all of the branding for a worldwide competition for a game called Wild Animals. The two caught up to their master just as he questioned why everyone would be so calm in an imminent large-scale battle. "Because it's not a real battle, you idiot," Bakugou stated as he marched up to the cyborg. "It's a worldwide tournament for a game of some kind," Todoroki said, approaching as well. Exactly, a gong rang out through the arena and Saitama started away from the group into a large waiting area filled with people in front of a large stage, where a skinny man in a tuxedo began to announce the importance of the event, how it was taking place all over the world, how anyone could register, and most importantly was the 5 million yen cash prize, which got the attention of Saitama. Both Saitama and Genos charged forth into the crowd to register, followed by a reluctant Bakugou and Todoroki. Once at the registry, Genos was turned away from being enhanced by cybernetics, which was against the rules, and after a large and protracted argument with him and Bakugou, both he and Todoroki registered for the tournament as well. The crew were now walking down towards the tech area. "Why would you have us register? We don't even know how to play this stupid game," Bakugou exclaimed with his hands in his pockets, walking down the hallway. "You won't have to worry about that," was all Saitama said. "And why do you say that?" Todoroki inquired. Saitama only pointed to an area in response. In the direction he pointed at was a girl in a bunny costume, who was giving the input options the game has. On one side, there was regular controller spatzer arcade machine, but on another was a VR system where the game mirrors your body movements. "So that's why you're confident in your victory, sensei," Genos exclaimed next to him, which his master nodded in return. "Yes, that means the person that is strongest in real life will also be the strongest in the game world. That 5 million yen is as good as mine," Saitama said, balling his hand into a fist in front of him. "Oh, you think you're the strongest in the world? Aren't you just a B-class nobody?" Bakugou mocked. Master Saitama's results were undoubtedly tampered with by the association. He broke every record available but was still placed in C-class. Someone must have had a vendetta against him, and once I find out whom, I will incinerate them for their intrusion," Genos said immediately in his master's defense. Saitama put a hand in front of Genos, signaling him to stop. "I told you before, don't go burning people on my behalf, and as for you, explodey guy, just watch, I'll get to the finals only using one punch," Saitama said seriously. After some time of getting adjusted to the VR headset and getting them calibrated for their body types, the contestants were ready, and to the surprise of the crew, Saitama was the first match of the tournament. Just as the match began, it had ended a second later to the surprise and shock of the crowd. The only voice heard was the sound of laughter as Bakugou was mocking and pointing at how fast the supposed strongest lost the match. Genos was almost enraged by the opponent's lack of class, even taunting his master's character once he was defeated, but he was calmed down by Saitama, who dispatched what he considered wisdom to him, which he wrote down in his journal. The next round Todoroki was up. He wasn't too well versed in hand-to-hand combat, and he really didn't care much about winning this tournament, but he would give the match his best either way. He approached the machine and stepped onto the stage, putting on the VR headset, being launched into the virtual world of the game. The backdrop of the stage was setting sun on a cliff face of the ocean. The character he chose was that of a dog anthro, while his opponent was that of a snake anthro. Todoroki tested his movements, and just as advertised, his character model moved along with it. His opponent did the same, shooting off a few punches and a couple of kicks as the clock continued to count down. Todoroki steeled himself as the start sign flashed on screen. The serpent immediately leaped forward with a punch. Todoroki sidestepped the blow, sending out a punch that was deflected by his opponent's other hand. His opponent launched out with a side kick that hit Todoroki in the stomach, staggering his characters, leaving him open to a follow-up combo that left his character in the air. He finally had a moment to recover and find his footing again, and launched another straight punch at the charging man that was easily dodged and reciprocated by a knee to the gut. Todoroki managed to block the incoming punch aimed at his face, but was too slow to counter. Instead, being forced to block a flurry of punches from his opponent, seeing the barrage way somewhat, he tried to attack again, only to be countered and hit with another flurry of blows that ended with a combo of kicks that finished him off and ended the game. As he got back to the group, Bakugou was still laughing. "Really, that's all you got, icy hot? I could have seen that feint from a mile away," Bakugou joked. Although rather vulgar, I agree with his assessment. Your hand-to-hand combat skills are lacking, Genos commented. Hand-to-hand combat wasn't focused much in my training, Todoroki commented. You mean to say you neglected it in your training? Focusing on your attributes are important, but your body is still the most important aspect in a fight, Genos said matter-of-factly. Maybe so, Todoroki said simply. As they were talking, it was Bakugou's turn to fight. He was a fifth-round participant. He chose the character of a lion. A king fitting a king, he thought as he approached the stage and grabbed the VR headset. He set it on his head. The backdrop was a navy shipyard. Bakugou's opponent was a lizard man. He watched as the counter counted down. He smiled with anticipation. The match began and Bakugou was the first one to move, running straight at the lizard man, launching numerous punches and jabs to gauge his opponent's defenses. He jumped back just in time to dodge a kick from the lizard man before coming back for more. He countered another snap kick, pushing it off to the side before landing a punch straight into the lizard's face, followed by multiple others, ending in a strong uppercut, sending his opponent flying upwards. His opponent recovered in the air and landed. Bakugou didn't want to give him any quarter and charged forth and throw another punch, but his opponent jumped over it and tried to deliver a dive kick. Bakugou leaned away from the attack and, using his opponent's falling momentum along with his own upwards momentum, launched a punch that went straight to his jaw, knocking the lizardman out and ending the match. He handed the machine back to the worker and walked back to his group with a smug smirk on his face. That's how it's done, you extras, Bakugou said confidently. The player you fought was clearly inexperienced. Let's see how long you can keep this up, Genos said in challenge. That means we got to stay, huh? Saitama sighed out in annoyance. The spot Kings selected was a pretty luxurious location. Each group were separated into different rooms, set up each with a controller or VR station. Minta was unsure of which input method he should take, but ultimately decided with a controller, as he wasn't the best at hand-to-hand combat in his class, especially without the use of his quirk. Kings was in the first round, and it was over in a flash. His first bout was a lot closer. Even though he trained with King for this event, if you would call just getting beat up training, he eventually managed to pull out the win and move on to the next round. You managed to beat that guy. You may have some talent in this game after all, King said. It was close though. I almost guaranteed to lose the next round since my next opponents are probably going to be better than that, Minta lamented. So you're gonna try the VR controls then? King said. Probably, but can you do something for me? Minta asked as he got closer to whisper into King's ear. Can you convince the worker over there so I can use my quirk? It's not technically cheating as it's my natural ability. Minta whispered, looking at the worker over by the VR area. King thought for a moment and considered the small teen's request, who looked at him with his best pleading puppy dog eyes. Fine, King conceded, making the teen jump in appreciation. King took on another round and again it was over in an instant, his hands blazing across the controller in a number of combos and actions that completely overwhelmed the opponent. And just like that, Minta match was next. Minta and King both proceeded towards the VR station area, and Minta immediately started to take off 4 pop-off orbs from on top of his head, getting a rise out of the employee, but before he could say anything about it, King tapped the person on his shoulder, drawing his attention, and he gasped in shock as the King had removed his shades and mask to reveal his identity. Mr. King, the employee said in shock. I would like for you to overlook my friends here, he said, simply staring in the man's eyes, making him gulp before speaking. But Mr. King, that's tampering. It defeats the sportsmanship of the tournament, the employee said sheepishly. I can't tell you the details yet as it is classified, but that is his natural ability. No rules are being broken here. King said. Upon the look of doubt on the employee's face, he continued. Look, let this slide and I'll give you my autograph and a picture to authenticate it, King reasoned, bringing a smile to the employee's face, who quickly agreed and left the room to go and get something for him to sign. He came back with a magazine, and he took a picture with King. Anything else they did was blocked out as Minta put on the VR headset. He had laid out his pop-up balls in a cross around him. The backdrop of this fight was an empty room of just white space. It reminded him of the Matrix room at the end. His opponent was a lion. He did a mocking gesture before the match began, and Minta responded in kind. The match began and the lion immediately rushed him, launching a barrage of punches that Minta dodged out of the way from due to his small size. He tried to strike back, but the punch was grabbed by his opponent, which his opponent used as an opportunity to strike him in the gut and throw him to the ground. Minta got up quickly and stepped back onto his pop-off, which launched him forward in the game at rapid pace, catching the lion off guard and landing a punch directly in the lion's face. He continued the barrage with a 4-hit punch combo, ending with a kick to the stomach, sending the lion full screen. The Lin quickly recovered and charged forth, swiping low. Minta used his pop-off ball to dodge the attack, and the one opposite to charge back for a counter. The lion was more expecting this time and blocked his counter-attacks. Trying for another grab, Minta had dodged by going low. He bounced back and hit the lion in the back, but the lion reacted quickly, launching a back swipe that caught Minta in the face. The two opponents sized each other up from across the screen, and Minta decided to strike first. He quickly launched off with his pop-off ball straight towards the lion, who blocked the strike. But he wasn't done. He began launching his own barrage hit and run tactics to keep the lion on the defensive. Minta believed he was wearing the lion down with this offensive, but was surprised when it read the direction of one of his attacks and was about to punch him square in the face, but before the punch could land, the match came to an end. Minta had won as he had more health remaining by the end. He cheered in celebration. Bakugou nearly exploded the VR system in his hands. He had that bastard dead to rights. If it wasn't for the time limit, he would have won for sure. He handed the machine back to the employers and grumpily marched back to the group. It was a close match, Todoroki commented. Can it icy hot? Bakugou snarled. Interesting. I saw the mouse's first match and his movements seemed far faster and smoother than before, Genos mentioned. What? You're saying they're cheating or something? Makes sense. The only way that chump would beat me, Bakugou sneered. I'm not sure. He could have just started using the VR controls, Saitama reminded. But if he was that good with the VR controls, why wouldn't he start out with them? Todoroki asked, only receiving a shrug in return. The group started back towards the viewing area with numerous screens showing fights taking place all throughout the world at different venues. Bakugou insisted that they stay at least until that rat fucker goes down. They sat and watched as the matches continued. The rat, to Bakugou dismay, won another match again, but this time he was up against another legend in the tournament. He was against the dragon, who has been beating people with just his kicks multiple times now. The rat was no different. He went down hard as soon as the match began. A barrage of kicks met him and instantly defeated him, leaving a grin on Bakugou's face. Saitama was finally relieved that they could leave the event now, but unfortunately for him the rest of his party was adamant in seeing who would win the competition outright, the three top contenders being the dragon, wolf, or koala. The last of the semifinals was between the wolf and the dragon. The match was what the fans had been anticipating, a fight between martial artists. "Is that Silver Fang?" Genos noted as the wolf finally began to fight back. "The old man doesn't play video games," Saitama noted. "But how do you explain what we just saw?" Genos commented. "Could be a student of his," Todoroki commented. "Doubtful. He only had one student whose skills are severely lacking compared to the wolf," Genos stated matter-of-factly. "Whoa, look at them go." Minta watched as the two characters brawled, trading blow for blow. That dragon guy sure was strong, but the wolf seemed to be able to keep up with him just fine. The wolf and the dragon were trading blow for blow. The two were almost equal in skill. "Finally someone that can actually fight," remarked eternally to himself as a wicked grin grew on his face. He was currently on the defensive of the dragon's ferocious attacks before he was just measuring his opponent the entire time, seeing if he was actually worthy to force him to use that technique. Ultimately decided that he was, and soon the blue trails started to coat his hands as he deflected a jumping kick from his opponent and in exchange traded with a blow of his own that struck dead center, but his opponent pleasantly surprised him and countered his own counter with an attack of his own, stopping him from following up on the attack. He just landed the two, spaced themselves out before continuing on with the exchange. The opponent was more than his equal. But he wasn't going all out just yet, and he could tell that his opponent wasn't either, so he wanted to take things up a notch just to draw out his full power. "What happened?" Minta asked in confusion. The wolf just stopped completely in its tracks as the dragon seized the opportunity to win. "The wolf probably overloaded the controls and froze the system by moving too fast," the worker said, before looking over to King, who was about to go next. "Is that why you decided to use controller, King? The inputs probably wouldn't work with how strong you are," the employee continued. "Why, yeah, let's go with that," was King's hesitant response. "Not that you need it, but I'll be careful with that dragon, he seems tough," Minta warned. "Don't worry, I got this," was King's reply, full of confidence. The finals was finally here and Minta was on the edge of his seat ready for the bout to begin, but despite how good the dragon was, King was just too much. Just like his other matches, he completely overwhelmed the dragon and won the fight in an instant. "Way to go, King, you won the tournament," Minta yelled. All of the people were escorted back out into the lounging area where King was called up towards the stage to give a few parting words. "I heard this was the last invitation, so I figured I'd give it a try. Sorry, I guess I'm too strong." The Philosophers, Tank Top Squad, Child Emperor's Group, Great Philosopher. The day was going somewhat normally for Shoji and the Tank Tops. He quickly got into the routine of training out with the Tank Tops, some light sparring, and the occasional patrol that the Tank Top army would require of him. This time, however, unlike previously, where their patrol was limited towards the city surrounding the headquarters, this time they were traveling in a car to a faraway city designated Y City. Shoji was accompanied by his usual crew of Tank Girl and Tank Philosopher, who had a particularly cheery smile on his face. "You're excited to go to Y City, I assume?" Shoji asked to make conversation. "You could say that. It's not about the city itself, really, but who is in it that piques my interest," Tank Philosopher replied. "Someone you know is stationed there?" Shoji questioned. "My brother," he managed to say before getting interrupted by a surprised gasp from Tank Girl. "What? You never told me you have a brother," she exclaimed. "Have I not mentioned it before? Well, surely you should have noticed the similarities between us and our styles if you met him before. My brother is the Great Philosopher," he said, simply making the girl pause in thought, searching for an image to go with the name and remembering seeing him once on her patrols before. "Oh yeah, that makes complete sense now that I think about it," she said, slamming her fist into an open palm. Tank Philosopher nodded and looked back to Shoji. "As I said, he's my older brother, a class rank 13, he stated simply. "That reminds me, what rank are you?" Shoji asked. Me, I'm a class rank 15, second highest in the tank top army behind veteran. Of course that's disregarding master of course, he said simply. So your brother is stronger than you? Tank girl said somewhat mockingly. Well, he is my older brother for a reason now, isn't he? Tank philosopher said with a smug grin at the girl's exasperated expression. I might not be the only one with connections to the city, you may have some as well. Tank philosopher said, looking at Shoji. I don't believe I do if that's what you're implying. Shoji said a bit curious. Did your book tell you that? Tank girl said more curious than mocking. No, and I presume you do because you said that your friends were assigned to other S-class heroes, which includes Child Emperor. His main laboratory is in Y City. He reasoned. Oh, well in that case, yes you are correct on that, 2 of my classmates train under him. Shoji confirmed. Oh, I get to meet your friends, I'm curious if they are as unique as you are. Tank girl said as she rotated her hand in a gesture trying to use the right word to describe his quirk. I'm the most unique among my friends. Debatably, they are more laid back when it comes to their quirks. One has the ability to produce sound and the other the ability to shoot acid. Shoji informed the 2 heroes. The rest of the car ride was spent mostly with idle chatter and discussion of random topics and their life before becoming a hero. The car eventually came to a stop at the center of Y City and the crew got out and started walking the streets. Nothing seemed to be happening so far and Shoji hadn't been getting as many strange looks as he had been previously, but some people still stared at him when he thought he wasn't looking. An alarm finally came on signaling 2 threats of threat level Tiger or above, but the directions were in opposite directions to each other, so the group decided to take on one of the threats together and book it to the next location if the situation was necessary. The group ran towards where the threat was located to see a big mountain of a man fighting what appeared to be an equally giant mutant ape being with golden bands around their wrists and a decorated neck chain with red lunar shapes and black orbs around its neck. The giant seemed to have been talking to the creature as he held it in an arm hold, but another creature almost identical attempted to strike from the side of the giant man, only to have its chest caved in by Tank Philosopher, who approached the man who held the beast in a death grip. What have I told you of waiting until after you confirm the enemy number to question them, brother? He walked up to grab his book from the dead carcass as his brother chuckled lightly. I was not fated to die this day, brother. Great Philosopher said as he overpowered the creature, slamming it towards the ground using the book close to his chest and slamming it over the creature's head, crashing it on the concrete and busting the creature's head open on the concrete. Because I was fated to save you, Tank Philosopher said as he picked his book back up, both of the brothers chuckling lightly at each other. Oh brother, now there's 2 of them. Tank girl sighed as she facepalmed. Shoji was going to join in when the group heard a bunch of shouts and growls all around them, signaling that there were many more opponents than the 2 they just faced. Using his quirk, he created multiple ears to see if he could tell where exactly the noise was coming from, and to his surprise, it was all around them. He quickly yelled that they were surrounded, and as he said, such more of those ape-like beings began to come out of alleyway and rooftops. 10 more of the creatures had sprung up surrounding the group of heroes. Oh man, we're in the center of the circus, Tank Girl said. We should regroup so we don't get separated, Shoji said as he pointed towards the brothers. What, you scared? Tank Girl teased. No, I just think. Calm down, kid, I'm just joking around. It was a good idea, she said as they made their way towards the 2 brothers going behind them and facing the apes at their backs. How strong is one individually? Can we take them? Tank Girl asked. They are somewhat stronger than the average wolf-level monster, but not much to write home about, Great Philosopher said as he stroked his large beard. You hear that, tentacle? They're somewhat tough, she extrapolated. The howling began to get louder and the apes around them started to jump around. They all began to jump down towards the group of heroes and rush them. Immediately 2 fell completely towards the ground as 2 books burst through 2 of their chests. The rest continued to charge at the group of heroes. Shoji sprouted multiple arms from his back ready to brace the charging apes. Once they were in range, he shot them forth, targeting 2 apes that were coming at him. One of them managed to dodge out of the way of the limb, holding on to it and biting down with its massive incisors. This sent a surge of pain through his body, but he powered through with his other attacks, which hit the smaller ape straight on, landing multiple punches that staggered the ape backwards, falling back to the ground. Tank Girl charged forth at the apes, instead fighting in the midst of 3 of them. She had managed to eliminate one, quickly jumping into the air and wrapping her legs around one of their necks, breaking it, and then using her momentum to throw the body at the next ape charging her. The 3rd ape spoke forth with its claws, but she countered quickly, using trapping its arms and flipping it over onto its back, quickly breaking the thing's arm in the process. But before she could deliver a final blow, the ape that had been knocked over by the dead body recovered enough to punch the girl off its companion, quickly jumping on top of her and trying to claw her throat out. She held both of its arms at bay, but that still left its fangs. It began to reach down to try and bit her neck, but she responded in kind, launching a swift head, but briefly disorientating the ape, but it recovered quickly with new vigor, forcing its arms down stronger, slowly overpowering the girl, and to make matters worse, the arm she broke was coming back for revenge before it could exact that revenge. However, elongate arms wrapped around one creature, while 5 fists landed in the face of the creature on top of her, knocking it off. She looked to see Shoji tossing the one he wrapped up into the ground, knocking the beast out cold, which was then quickly followed by a book to the head by Tank Philosopher. A loud thud sound from behind her, which was Great Philosopher slamming his book into the chest of the ape Shoji just knocked out. As she stood up, she realized that the battle was over. "Thanks for the save there, you're bleeding," she remarked, seeing the blood on one of his additional arms. "Don't worry about it, my dupli arms are dispensable," he explained. "Oh well, that's neat," she said. "One battle won and another awaits," the Great Philosopher preached. "We should hurry as well," Tank Philosopher said, shooting a warning glance at Shoji, but before he could ask what it meant they took off. He had a bad feeling as he and Tank Girl attempted to follow them to the other monster attack. "Remind me to kill that little twerp when we're done," Mina screamed. "Just focus on surviving," was Gyro's immediate reply. Both Mina and Gyro both were running away from a gelatinous blob monster abomination. The day started normally enough for our 2 heroines, more live testing for their upgraded tools and equipment. However, this time upon hearing the monster alarm for the city, Child Emperor told the 2 that they should go alone despite their protest, citing that he needed to complete work on his brave giant project. That Mina was still peeved at him for not letting her get anywhere near, even going so far as to put safeguards to stop her from closing within 500 FT of the designated area. The 2 heroes decided to just leave, given that the monsters could be wreaking havoc that very moment, due to the panic state of the civilians around them. Mina didn't have to play 21 questions with almost every fashionista she came across, even though she was more prepared this time given her time with Toru and adjusting her colors of her skin suit. As they got to the scene of the presumed threat, the area was eerily quiet. Nothing seemed to be moving or making a sound, but the shop windows were broken open and cars were overturned. The landscape clearly indicated that something had happened in the area. Gyro went to work using her quirk to search the area for any kind of noise, only coming up with some squishing and squelching sounds instead. Figuring that nothing else was in the area, she decided to check out the noise with Mina. What the 2 came up upon was a towering 20 feet tall blob that seemed to have a singular eye in the center. It turned to face them, and to their shock they noticed that somebody was inside of it. From the looks of it, there was a hero with armor and a red scarf. The blob took a couple of steps towards the girls, which they began to back up from it. "Any ideas?" Mina asked. "We need to get that guy out of there before he suffocates," Gyro explained. "That much is obvious. But how?" Mina said. "I have an idea, but you'll need to get around it," Gyro said, pointing behind the blob. Having an idea what she was going to do, Mina threw her a thumbs up and began to run towards the beast. It reciprocated, trying to grab her, but she easily managed to dodge under its attempt, using her acid to skate along the ground at a fast pace. Once she was behind the creature, who turned around to face her, Gyro shot out a sound wave directly towards the trapped human. As she expected, the sound waves had enough force to launch the person out of the blobbed mass and directly towards Mina. But she miscalculated the force, and the guy ended up sailing further away than she had anticipated. But Mina thought quickly, using her quirk with maximum viscosity to shoot out 2 strings of rope and catching the man in web she made. The man quickly took a deep breath, and opened his eyes in a panicked look over his surroundings. He pulled free of the restrictions and was immediately on guard from a pink girl running up to him. Seeing this, Mina slowed her pace and put her hands out in front of her. "Easy, easy. I'm friendly. Are you okay?" she asked the man. He visibly relaxed somewhat and coughed while answering her. I'm fine, thank you for rescuing me. I'm the C-Class Hero Red Muffler," he said. "Hello, I'm C-Class Hero Acid Cherry, but you can just call me Pinky." Mina smiled, shaking the guy's hand. "Ugh, guys, save the introductions for later," Gyro said as she was getting cornered by the beast blasting holes in the creature only for it to regenerate like nothing happened. "Oh, got to go," Mina said quickly. "I'll find help," Red Mufflers yelled back as he saw the girl running away. Mina continued forwards toward the giant creature, and she switched her acid to that of maximum acidity and shooting them forth towards the creature. To her surprise, the creature absorbed it, but howled in pain nonetheless, and she watched as the acid moved through the creature and was quickly expelled back towards her and at Gyro in front of it. Thankfully, Gyro used her arm amps to dodge out of the way. "Watch where you're aiming," she yelled at her friend. "That wasn't technically me," Mina replied as she avoided a swing from the monster. Its hand changed into a ball with spikes on it. The shockwave of the impact sent Mina spiraling, but she was stopped by Gyro. The two of them faced down the monster, but instead of attacking them, it reached its hand out to a near fire hydrant, breaking it open and absorbing water into its form, increasing its size before it stopped and began to shoot the water out of appendages on its body, forcing the girl to begin to run away. The monster chased after them, shooting out water that tore the streets apart around them or tossed over cars on shots that strayed to wild. The blob tossed a car in front of them, halting their progress, forcing them to turn around and face it. It shot out a huge water gust at them, and Mina and Gyro both reciprocate using their quirks in conjunction to resist the effects, but they were fighting a losing battle. They eventually lose, but Mina fought ahead, summoning part of her acid man on one side of her body to not burn Gyro as blob creature grabbed them. Feeling the burning sensation from Mina acid the blob monster threw the two girls away. They both tried to brace for impact before being caught by two extended arms. "Shoji," they both said in unison as he reeled them in. They noticed a girl next to him and was going to ask about it, but as he put them down, the monster made their way towards the three. Two flickers were caught in their vision as two men jumped from the rooftops on top of the monster coming down. They heard the two voices sound out as two books crashed into the monster, completely exploding it. Reigning Philosophy, Philosophical Tank Volley. The brothers landed in the center of where the monster was and took up their books and walked towards the group of teens. "I assure these are your friends Tentacle," Tank Philosopher said. "Fate was on your side today," Great Philosopher said. "Ugh, thanks for the assist," Gyro said to the two book-holding heroes. "Yeah, that thing was crazy," Mina exclaimed. "Ugh, guys," Tank Girl said as she began to point towards where the creature, its blobs starting to reform around the center of the eyepiece, but before it could fully resemble a blur, completely charged and ripped the eyepiece out, destabilizing the blob again. The being that did appeared in front of the clearly, it was mechanical, but it had a dog appearance to it. With the thing's eye in its mouth, the blob was continuing to pursue the eye, but as it got close, the machine bit down, breaking the eye thing in half. Where the blob liquid just stopped moving completely and fell towards the ground. Mina recognized the robot in Child Emperor's laboratory, and to cement that fact, she began to hear his voice through the machine as it turned around. "Being so focused on my work, I forgot to give you a way to contact me if something went wrong," Child Emperor said bashfully. "We could have been killed. You're definitely gonna let me touch all the things once I get back," Mina said angrily, making Gyro roll her eyes, which allowed her to notice that another person was approaching them. It was the guy from before. "I bought reinforcements," he huffed. "Thank you," Gyro told the guy. Mina continued to chastise Child Emperor until the kid finally offered a peace treaty of a free meal at any place they want in the city for the entire group that is there, which she happily accepted and decided on, of course, the most expensive place in the city to the objections of no one present. Show business, Sweet Mask, Watchdog Man, Aoyama, Asui. Aoyama was starting to get the hang of this reflection thing. He was now able to reflect his laser off of 8 of the 10 mirrors. He had just been narrowing in on the 9nth mirror. Sweet Mask broke in, disrupting his concentration. The laser he fired had almost hit the star, but the star thought quickly, using his watch to deflect the blow back to him. Aoyama wasn't fast enough to dodge in time and was hit in the center of the head, knocking him on his back. Aoyama noted how the attack didn't really hurt as much as he expected, nothing compared to a blow from Sweet Mask. "Get up, we're going," Sweet Mask said in annoyance. The remark quickly stirred Aoyama in motion. "What? Where are we going, sir?" Aoyama said curiously. "I am having a concert in Q City. You will be running security for the event along with a few others. Not that you should be needed if Mutt has anything to say about it, but I digress," Sweet Mask said simply. "Mutt? Do you mean Watchdog Man?" "Why, yes. Are you a fan or something?" "No, it's just that one of my friends is training under him." "I see. I have been meaning to search out your friends. What can you tell me about this one?" "I'm sure it's one of the girls. Her name is Asui and her quirks give her the same abilities of a frog." "A frog? Sounds frankly useless," Sweet Mask said, rubbing his chin. "It may not sound strong, but it's better than you may think. She can extend her tongue, excrete toxins, and even go invisible," Aoyama said, defending his friend. "I see. We shall see." With that said, the two took off towards Q City. Aoyama's new suit that Sweet Mask had commissioned has not been completed yet, and the man had told him that he would like for him to only reveal it to the public during or after the live interview next month. So Aoyama was still in his original hero costume, the dent in his right shoulder plate having been buffed out. As the two made it to the event space and got out of the car, a large gust of wind met their presence, forcing Aoyama to shield his eyes. Once he was able to open them again, he saw a man in a white dog costume in front of him on all fours, in a stance indicating danger, but as Aoyama turned his head, he saw nothing to be on edge about. "I see you're as rude as ever, Watchdog Man," Sweet Mask said, brushing off his clothes, when he received no response from the man but a slight growl. "And as vocal as ever. Don't mind me, I'm just here for my concert. Feel free to do as you please, but don't interrupt the show for my fans," Sweet Mask said with a not-so-friendly tone, only receiving another growl in return. "As for you, Solar Flare, you are to ensure that nothing interrupts my concert. I don't care if you have to put your life on the line to do it. Familiarize yourself with the area. My concert starts in 2 hours," Sweet Mask said, walking away. Aoyama was a bit taken back by the use of his hero name, but he guessed that the place had a similar convention as in their world, wherein the field heroes don't use their real names but their hero names. He was brought back to the forefront when he heard the sound of sniffing next to him. He jumped back as the dog costume wearing man and jumped back a bit. "Well, hello there, sir. You may not know me, but I'm friends with one of the people you know. A hero named Froppy," Aoyama said, holding out his hand, which the hero held out his paw for a shake instead and nodded. "You smell similar," was all the hero said, moving past him and following Sweet Mask, stopping outside of the event and sitting down. Aoyama went and stood next to the strange hero, trying to come up with conversation, but oftentimes then not being ignored or only having short replied answers once in what felt like ages. Feeling like the hero behavior indicated that he didn't want him around, he was about to leave and go to elsewhere around the arena, until he spotted a green suit that he recognized in the distance. After a few more minutes, the figure was easier to make out, and he definitely who the person was. It was Froppy. He waved his hand at her approach, yelling out a French greeting before meeting her in the nearly full parking lot along the way, hugging her before pushing off and noticing her short of breath. "Why did you rush here? Is there an attack coming?" Aoyama asked, worried. Asui showed him the GPS tracker and pointed at Watchdog Man before huffing out. "Watchdog Man never takes this long to return, so I got worried." "What are you doing here?" Asui asked. "Sweet Mask has a concert here, and I'm working security," Aoyama said as the two made their way back over towards Watchdog Man. "Doubt you have anything to worry about with Watchdog Man here. He eliminates all threats to the city almost instantly." "I don't think he likes me very much," Aoyama said bashfully. "Oh, don't mind that. That's just how he normally is, with everyone," she said, petting the hero on his head. She noticed how the hero was physically tense. "What's wrong? Speak." Asui looked down, looking concerned. I don't trust Sweet Mask. He smells wrong. Does he smell like us? Asui asked, confused. No, like a monster, he said, simply, causing Asui to gasp in shock. That can't possibly be true. Sweet Mask is a legend to the people. He is also one of the head administrators of the Hero Association. Aoyama tried to reason but started to realize the harsh clash in his personality which could be attributed to it. I don't know. The association told me that monsterization can occur in humans through many things such as a fixation or desire. It could be something like that and he doesn't even realize it. Ribbit, Asui said, putting a finger to her chin in thought. Doesn't matter, was all Watchdog Man said. Before any more conversation could be had about the topic, the alarms went off. It signaled that the monster was a wolf level in the area. Asui was shocked to see that. Watchdog Man whined but failed to move. He moved his head up and down as he sniffed the air. He then looked towards Tsu. You go, was all he said, shocking Asui even more. He was really serious about Sweet Mask being a monster to the point where he didn't want to leave the area. But this was a chance for her to save a monster, and if it turns out that Sweet Mask is a monster, he could revolutionize everything about this world and how they see monsters. Watchdog Man then gave her the directions they would need to take to get to the designated area and bumped into her with his head, begging her to go. All right, Aoyama, wanna come with me? I could use some backup, just in case, Asui said, seemingly snapping Aoyama from his stupor, and he nodded his head and continued along with the girl, surprising him in the fact that the monster was exactly where Dogman said he would be. The monster was a humanoid man with draconic scales and covering half of his body, and a lizard-shaped head. He wielded what appeared to be a scythe that held a draconic appearance with red accents on it. It turned to look at them and laughed. Where is Watchdog Man? Is he too scared to fight me? He boasted, shooting out a fireball at the hero that they both dodged. Trust me, you will be happy that we caught you instead, Asui said as she launched her tongue at the man, wrapping it around him, restraining him. Ha, I'll watch where you stick your tongue if you don't want it to get burned. Asui noted that the man's body temperature was quickly rising to almost burning levels, the heat forcing her to drop the man and quickly retract her tongue, making it swell somewhat in her mouth. The man opened his mouth and shot out a long stream of fire, chasing Asui's retreating tongue, but Aoyama interfered, canceling out the strike with his naval laser. Asui quickly charged the man, attempting to throw her mucus on the guy, but it quickly evaporated upon touching his body. She sucked in a breath as she avoided a swipe from the man's scythe, cutting it clear through a car that was behind her. Aoyama shot out another naval laser while he was distracted, hitting the man in the shoulder, somewhat staggering him. He quickly recovered, using his scythe to shoot out another fireball at Aoyama, which he countered with another naval laser. He was suddenly kicked in the back by Asui, sending him flying forward, but he righted himself by digging his scythe into the ground, swinging around it, and using the momentum to kick Asui back, breaking it out of the ground and attempting to bring it down on the girl. But it was knocked of course as a reflected naval laser hit it on the side, knocking it from its path and embedding it in the ground next to its target. He was hit in the back by another laser and quickly swung around to shoot another fireball at Aoyama, but was tripped up by Asui, causing the fireball to launch straight into his face, knocking him out. Aoyama came over to check if Asui was okay, helping her stand up. Thanks for that. A new trick? Asui questioned. Yeah, Sweet Mask has me working on it to change my angle of attack. I can only do it off reflective surfaces though. Aoyama gestured to a window he used to deflect the laser. Well, it saved me, so it's still worth it. Ribbit, she mentioned. So, what do we do with him? Aoyama gestured to the villain below. Eishon, I don't know. I never really captured someone before. Watchdog Man usually kills them. Oh, I know. Asui Hasselty got her phone out and called the Q City representative Dahlia, explaining to her the situation and monster they needed to pick up. After arriving, Asui introduced Aoyama, and they had a brief chat before making their way back towards the stadium. Do you really think that Sweet Mask is a monster? Aoyama asked. I mean, Watchdog Man is never wrong in his judgment. You see how he was able to guide us to where the monster is? He also could smell that I was different just upon meeting me. Ribbit. Oh, so that's what he meant by I smelled the same, Aoyama said as his smile turned into a frown. What's wrong, Ribbit? She said, jogging in front of him and walking backwards. It's just that it really must be painful to hide your true self from everyone around you. He's like me in that way. He murmured the last part. What did you say? Asui asked, snapping him from his eternal turmoil and raising his hand and flashing a big, most realistic smile he could manage. Just that all his friends, fans, and family would probably hate him if the truth came out, he said, his smile dropping again, causing Asui frown. Yeah, this world really does have some serious monster phobia, but wouldn't that be even more reason to come out to turn that perception around? Asui questioned out loud, not suspecting a response, as she turned around to walk forward again. Do you think people will actually accept it, or just turn against him because they're afraid? Think about the advent of quirks, and the war we just fought with the Liberation Front. Quirks were once considered abnormal and odd. People were scared of them. Some of them still are, Aoyama said seriously, leaving her speechless. The rest of the walk was spent in silence, both just contemplating this world and their own. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 7. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Lumpay Spark 3 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.